What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to go over the trades that we took today inside the Discord as well as the game plan going into tomorrow. So today was a super slow day when it comes to SPY. I didn't take any trades when it came to SPY. There was no setups given. So yeah, I mean, today there really wasn't much going on. When we look at the 30-minute chart, right off open, you can see we ended up opening right below this 30-minute 50 SMA. Market pretty much neutral going into today because we're kind of in this weird spot where we're still crossed, but we are below the 50. So at that point, I usually just take the market as neutral and look for a cross on either side of the premium. So when we go to the 0DT charts, this is where we get our entries from. This 30-minute chart right here just tells me kind of, the current state of the market and where to focus. So when we look like this, when we're, we did cross down, but the 50 is still sloped up. I'm still considering this neutral, and all I'm looking for is a cross on the 0DT charts to get an entry point. And we did actually get a cross, but I was not taking this trade whatsoever. Not a fan of it, because if we look here, yes, we got the cross, but the premiums are so cheap. Like, these are like 10 to 15 cents on the contracts. So when they get this cheap, I'm not going to be taking this type of cross. So I sat out of this. And also, when this cross happened, we were sitting at the 50 SMA area. So you can see it still provides some sort of reaction around this 50 SMA, even though we did kind of break above it over here. But before it, we were right at the 50. There's still a chance it does reject and the 50 curls down and we drop even more. So not a high confidence trade to take with the premium being that cheap and where we were on the 30-minute chart. So best thing to do today, sit out and just move on to the next day. So there's always going to be another trade opportunity and a better setup to catch. So, just wasn't worth my time today when it came to SPY. But, yeah, that's pretty much all, we did when it came to SPY. We did nothing. So, yeah, I'm going to pull up the put side real quick. Yeah, so this is what the put side looked like. So, right off of open, this chart right here, closed below the 50 SMA on puts. We popped back up into the 50, and this was kind of like a negative cross. But again, I always go over this right off of open. I'm not playing these negative cross type trades. So if the chart goes negative like right off the open or starting to go negative, that's not a trade I'm taking. And also with how the 30-minute chart looked, I wasn't really a fan of, even taking a long off of this negative cross. This isn't, again, a trade I want to be taking. This 50 SMA was sloped up pretty much the entire time. And what I was doing, like I said, I was waiting for the put cross would have been the best trade to take today if we got it, and we never got it. So, obviously there was no entry to take when it came to the short side, just because we know the 30-minute chart was starting to lose the 50. So if the puts ended up crossing, that would have been a pretty high conviction trade for me to go short. But again, we never got it, so there was no entry point for me. But this is just what the 0DT puts looked like, and the rest of the day, nothing was going on this side of the premium. And then, like I said, the call side wasn't going to take that cross with the premium being so cheap. So in turn, pretty much nothing on SPY today. Game plan for tomorrow, pretty simple. So on the 30-minute chart, again, this chart is starting to be neutral, so that pretty much means 10 SMA cross below the 50 SMA has got to be flat or pointing down when we're playing the negative cross. So going into tomorrow, we're probably gonna, if I had to guess, go neutral, and this 50 is going to turn. And at that point, 0DT cross either side of the premium tomorrow. Most likely, it would be to the downside. But again, let's say we did gap up tomorrow, 30-minute crosses on the calls. I'm open to taking a call cross. So that's pretty much the game plan going into tomorrow. But if we do get that put cross tomorrow, I am telling you that is a trade you 150% want to take because of this 30-minute chart and confluence with it. Because when we do initially go from one trend to neutral, we usually see a spike on the opposite side of the premium that's going neutral. So, with this chart going negative on the 30-minute, usually we'll see a, continuation move down on this premium, and that would in turn pump the put side of the premium. So that's a really good trade to take just because we have the 30-minute chart in confluence. Then if we get the 0DT put cross tomorrow, A+ setup in my opinion for tomorrow. You 100% want to be taking that if we do get it, and that's pretty much what I'm going to be looking for tomorrow. That's what I hope to get. That's kind of like the best setup going into tomorrow when it comes to the downside. For the upside, it would be if this 30-minute chart crosses back up and we get a cross on the call side. So that's your best case scenario for both sides tomorrow, and that's a good thing. We have a plan for each direction. Doesn't matter where we go, still a trade opportunity to take, and we just have to wait for it to come to us. So that's what we did for SPY. That's our game plan for tomorrow. When it comes to individual stocks, I did take a individual trade or individual stock trade, and that was on UNH. This was pretty much break even. I stopped for 3% on this. If we go to UNH here, pretty simple. I mean, all I did was buy this 50 SMA dip. The risk to reward on this through the roof because we were sitting right at the 50 SMA. My fill got, I think I was in this at like right around $4 on the premium. So I didn't get right at the 50, but I just liked where we were at and the potential that this trade had, because we also had the 1 hour chart that was crossed, and then the 2 hour chart was also crossed. So unfortunately didn't pan out, but again, it wasn't a big loss at all. 3% is what I cut it at, because you can see here we got a little bounce. I was up around 20% right here, but again, I'm not looking for small gains. It's like 50 to 70% is where I take my first trim at. Sometimes 40%, depending on what the chart looks like and where we're at for the day, but usually 50 to 70%. That's where I'm going to be taking a trim. Never got there, so again, I never took a trim, because usually when we do buy these dips at the 50, we could see the continuation of the trend just like this. So this one's better because it's on the initial cross of the SMAs. This is kind of just a dip buy after the cross. So we got the cross, dip to the 50, and usually that ends up marking a bottom if the stock does want to continue to rip. And obviously for UNH that wasn't the case, and we end up closing below the 50, and that's where I end up cutting it. So very small loss, can't really complain. Nothing going on with SPY, and I just saw the opportunity, took it on UNH. We got stopped out for a couple percent. Can't really complain with that. So that's what we did with UNH. I do like CRWV going into the rest of the week if we do get a cross. This is what I was looking for this week, or today. This chart to cross, we never got it, and unfortunately, this drop back down, and who knows if it's actually going to go across. But you guys could kind of have this on your watch list and just wait for the 10 and the 50 to cross here on the 140 calls for this Friday. And if we do get that, you best believe I will be taking calls on the stock. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we did. And then also Palantir, I did drop this in yesterday's video in the free Discord, but unfortunately there wasn't an entry provided this morning. So right off open, we ended up getting this fat candle here that open below the 50, so this wasn't a trade you could have taken. I went over this yesterday as to why I wanted to take a short on it, but you can see we end up closing below the 50 here right off open. Didn't like it after that, and the reason behind this trade was because if we look on the monthlies here, the daily chart is crossing negative. I mean, this still looks very bearish, and if we could just get a put cross on Palantir, this is a really good short opportunity. I really hope we do get a cross on this tomorrow. If we do, really high confidence trade. Again, the premium Discord will get when I enter. You guys, all you have to do, just watch for the chart to cross 10 to 50 SMA. You can take the entry point, and yeah, I mean, I posted this in the free Discord. I mentioned it in my video yesterday as well. Palantir was a good one to look for. Unfortunately, it gapped up and there was no entry provided. So just wait for that 30-minute chart to cross, and that'll be a good trade opportunity. So it's very simple. All we're doing is playing across of the two SMAs. It's not that hard. You just have to understand where you want to be entering exactly and when not to take a cross, because sometimes the SMAs will cross at a point, but the stock already made such a big move that when you look at the actual price of the contracts, they are super extended from where the SMAs are actually at. So that's kind of like the hardest thing I would say when it comes to trading this strategy, is you got to know where you want to be entering and when not to take a trade, because like I said, sometimes the SMAs will cross, but if the stock made such a big move, it just, the risk to reward doesn't make sense to enter it at that point, and you'll be taking a very big loss if it does pull back and not just continue to go. So that's kind of like some pointers, I guess, on how you want to be taking these charts. The closer you get an entry to the 10, the 50, the better. But obviously you're not always, usually when we do get a cross, it's not gonna like pull back to the 10 to 50 right at the bat for your entry point. Sometimes, like I said, like just on if we go up to, what was this, CRWV? No, UNH. Let's just, for example, if you took this back in here, I mean, this is like a perfect cross, because the SMAs were so like close already, and then you could have entered probably on, I mean, this probably crossed at 318 on these, 50s at 260. So if you wanted to, again, you could wait for that pullback or enter at 320, leave a little bit of room to add, and then just scale in as we pull back to the 10, the 50, and stop loss below the 50, and then you get a nice little move there, chop, 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 gaps up and rips. So that's kind of a little pointer on the system. You just don't be taking crosses that are super extended, and then also you always want to look out for the higher time frame 50 SMAs, which on UNH we're above the 1 hour, 2 hour, and then the 4 hour chart and daily don't have one, which you will come across. Every single time frame is not going to have one. Sometimes the higher time frames don't have a 50, and I'm not really sure, like I said, what gauges that of whether there's an SMA on the chart or not. But if there's not one on the time frame, I just don't look at it. It doesn't really do anything to the trade. The most important part is the 30-minute cross. This is where we get our entries from. So yeah, that's the most important time frame when it comes to taking these crosses, because we use the 30-minute. Only time frame I'm using for entries when it comes to individual stocks. For SPY though, we have 0DT contracts. So those are the charts we pull up the 5-minute on, which some people do get confused on because they see a 30-minute chart and then they see the 5-minute, so they think the 5-minute chart you could use on the individual stocks as well. I only use the 30-minute on individual stocks when I play in the crosses, and then 0DT, the 5-minute is the only time frame that I'm looking at. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got. If you guys enjoyed, drop a like, drop a sub. If you guys want to learn, join Discord down below. But that's what we did today. That's our game plan for tomorrow. If you guys want to learn, like I said, join Discord down below. That's where I'm at all day, every day. And if you want to learn how we trade these charts, that's the place to be. But yeah, I'm out. Peace.